Well, I'll mention WHO. We know a lot about Tedros, who's been the head of the WHO, their director general for several years now, and we saw during COVID, many people saw how he was parroting the Chinese regime line, and when China didn't want what was happening in Wuhan and now spreading around the world, didn't want it to be declared an emergency, he said, no, it's not an emergency. And then eventually he changed his tune. But we saw how throughout that period he often parroted the Chinese regime line. What I think people didn't realize, and I don't have her name with me handy, but his predecessor was from Hong Kong, and she was the Chinese candidate. So for about 10 years, uh, China was exercising significant influence over the WHO, and my understanding was that it was a reaction to what they had experienced with, I think it was called the bird flu. I forget what it was called. What was
Yeah,
the
avian flu.
previous? Yeah, the avian flu, and this also came out of China, and it was a huge development for them, and the WHO had a major role there, and I think they began to understand the significance of the WHO role, and so that's why their candidate was elected. She was from Hong Kong, but she was China's candidate, and that's notable. And I hadn't realized that back then. I saw it was from Hong Kong. I said, okay, well, back in 2007, 2008, someone from Hong Kong, great. It's a bastion of democracy in Asia. But I hadn't realized that she was actually China's candidate. And then when we saw Tedros, who, by the way, I think a day after he was elected several years ago, he said that he reaffirmed the one China policy, which is namely that Taiwan can never be considered an independent country. And of course, many people may know that when Taiwan seeks to participate at the annual World Health Assembly that's held in Geneva each year in May or June, Taiwan is denied credentials, is not allowed to be there. So it's a significant country which actually contributes a lot on health. It's not allowed to be accredited to a meeting that's supposed to coordinate health. And that's something that's very strong demand of China, and their demands get obeyed at the World Health Organization. What I also noted during COVID was that began to pay a bit more attention was that things that seem silly but have an impact is that the World Health Organization has goodwill ambassadors.